1866, 20 women met together to found the Christian Aid Society of Minneapolis, which today has grown to become the WCA Foundation. At that time, Minneapolis was a boomtown, facing a rapidly growing number of social problems. These women started this organization to focus on helping destitute persons in Minnesota. Those first members declared their purpose was to provide homes for poor Minnesotans. In addition to housing, they also sought to provide food, clothing, and religious and literary instructions for the needy across both race and class. Our very first project was soliciting clothing for freed slaves. The organization was started at a very critical time in our nation's history. The Civil War ended in May of 1865. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was passed by Congress. The organized women's movement was in its early formation. In fact, it would be 3 years later that the National Women's Suffrage Association would be formed, and still 54 years before the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920, finally granting women the right to vote. At the time of our founding, the WCA Foundation was the only organized society dedicated to serving the poor in Minneapolis. The founding members financed their projects by paying dues of $1 a year and received additional funds from churches and fundraising events. In those early years, our members undertook many different projects, some of which were deemed dangerous. They were resolute in their commitment to serving the underserved. Their influence was gradually felt in many different areas of the city. In the 1860s, members hired a city missionary, Emily Gray. Her duties were closer to that of a social worker. She was willing and motivated to visit the parts of Minneapolis that had the least services and the lowest incomes. She was committed to supporting the poor and the desperate, recognizing that work would involve uncomfortable conversations, building relationships across lines of difference, like race and class, and crafting creative solutions to major social and economic challenges. When WCA Foundation learned that women were being thrown into prison with men without regard for their safety, dignity, or desire for modesty, our members hired the city's first police matron to work with women prisoners. The early members of the WCA Foundation operated the Industrial School for Girls, worked with Travelers Aid to help women traveling alone to stay safe, ran the Women's Hotel, where female travelers coming to Minneapolis could secure respectable lodging for 15 to 50 cents a night. Additionally, WCA Foundation members trained nurses during World War I, operated a men's residence for a time, and founded Phyllis Wheatley, the first African-American settlement house in Minneapolis. In 1886, one of the founding women gifted $30,000 to WCA Foundation when she passed to build a home for the elderly. That same year, Judge E.S. Jones, an early advisor to the organization, gifted WCA an 80-acre farm, which ran from the south shore of Cedar Lake to Lake Street. The Jones-Harrison home was established in 1888, and over the years the home grew in stature and much of the land was sold.